Thank you for tuning back in to the Keen Intuition podcast, where I intend to share my stream of consciousness with you on any given day. And today's topic is going to be inflation. What is inflation? Merriam-Webster defines inflation as a continuing rise in the general price level, usually attributed to an increase in the volume of money and credit relative to the available goods and services. Britannica.com defines it as the general increase in prices or the money supply, both of which can cause the purchasing power of a currency to decline. CollinsDictionary.com defines it as a general increase in the prices of goods and services in a country. And NerdWallet.com defines it as inflation is the rate at which the price of goods and services increases. As a result of inflation, the purchasing power or value of money decreases over time. Inflation affects the prices of everything around us. Now, I agree with some of those descriptors and not so much with others. For instance, the Collins Dictionary one is just a general blurb, and I guess they're just calling it an increase in prices. And I started that way just to harken back to my previous episode where part of my intent is to gain information from various different sources in order to put it all together, in order to condense it or synthesize it or whatever the other words are that I can think of, and come up with my own conclusion based on whatever the subject is. And again, this time we're talking about inflation. So I was able to do a quick search before starting this podcast, starting this episode, in order to just be able to make sure that I have the definition in my mind correctly so I can present it to y'all as well. So obviously we are going through a time where there's a lot of inflation talk, and prices of groceries, prices of pretty much everything has risen. It kind of started during, or at least they say it started during COVID, and it's continued to rise, and maybe it fell for a little bit and continues to rise again. And we know that gas prices fluctuated a little bit more than other goods and groceries and things. And I saw a report the other day about U.S. automakers in particular, where they're experiencing a super high level of stock remaining on their car lots once it gets to the dealership level. And part of that is because of the increased prices of automobiles. And I don't know if the same is so for foreign cars, but I do know that the report was specifically speaking to U.S. automakers and their wares and their vehicles and everything. So that's something that, even whether you're rich or poor or whatever, maybe rich people don't have as much of a problem, but definitely poor people end up having to at some point make a decision between being able to afford medications, for instance, and being able to feed their family. That's not anything new, but it just gets worse during periods where the inflation rates increase and people end up feeling like they're affected even more. So, and I remember a couple weeks ago as well, or maybe going back a couple months, the president was talking about trying to get the Fed to decrease the interest rates in order to foster additional purchasing and consumerism. And I mean, I guess they say that kind of contributes to people going out and buying more stuff. But my concern when it comes to that was that even if you decrease interest rates, the prices are still high. So you're going to pay a little bit less in interest, but you're still paying higher prices for the goods. We could be somehow, and I don't know how, I'm not a political scientist, as I mentioned in the first episode, and I'm not in government, obviously, and so I don't know what methods they would use in order to quell the price increases and stuff. But he did run on, I'm going to drop inflation the first day, and obviously we're like 9 months in or 10 months or whatever, and inflation is still rising at record rates. So and again, I don't know what exactly he could do to turn the tide, but something has to happen. Um, and it's interesting because I voted the other day. Early voting started in Georgia this last week, so I was able to vote in this current election for a couple seats and the ballot measure. And it's interesting to me that these politicians are still able to raise money from people who keep donating money in these super PACs and all these other special interest groups when everybody is broke. Like, if everybody's broke and experiencing this inflation and can't afford groceries and all that kind of stuff, how do they have money to donate to politicians? And when you see GoFundMe's and all that kind of stuff, that's always something I've wondered about. So, I mean, I guess you have to choose prioritize your desires in that way, and then that's when they end up, being able to scrape up, nickels and dimes or whatever the case is in order to give it to whoever they want to give it to. So, but those are some things I always thought about. So, thinking about the Federal Reserve, one of the goals, it says, again, I did a little bit of research. The ideal for inflation in general is to keep it to no more than 2% as measured by the annual change in the price index for personal consumption expenditures. So basically, they want inflation to rise no more than 2%. And at this point, the last numbers that I saw, it was at least 2.9% based on and I'll get to some of that research a little bit later. It was between 2.9 and 3.7, I believe the numbers were. So that got me to thinking as well, wondering about what are some of the causes behind inflation, like what causes inflation. So I read that inflation, and I'm going to actually let me pause for a second. All of the sources that I have for the information, I'm going to try to put those in the caption and the description of the episode as well, so that you'll be able to see where I'm getting this information from. I'm not just pulling it out of the air. So, but basically, I read that inflation can be caused by various factors, including increased production costs associated with raw materials, labor, or market disruption. And yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. And then also Equifax.com says inflation occurs when the prices of goods and services increases over a long period of time, causing your purchasing power to decrease, which also makes sense because when things cost more and wages are not necessarily increasing, then your purchasing power decreases, obviously, because your money stretches less far than it did before. So that's one thing that I've been wondering about as well, because with these increases, we hear reports about companies and they are experiencing record profits in this time. And how is it that the prices are going up, you're experiencing record profits, but you're not hearing about the wages of the worker bees increasing? I know that we're in a capitalist society, well, at least in the U.S. So the idea is to be as far in the black as possible. In the black meaning profitable, and to reduce your, to adjust your bottom line to ebb towards profitability and all that kind of stuff. And some of these companies, they have stockholders and board members and all that kind of stuff to answer to. But in my opinion, you also have to answer to your employees, like the people who keep the business afloat. Yeah, you're probably, in some cases, considered a genius. Maybe you are not, like Elon Musk and, the Tesla and all that kind of stuff and all the other companies that they are affiliated with. But there are cogs in that machine that keep that machine going, and you have to keep those cogs oiled, metaphorically. So that's just a couple of my thoughts on that. So anyways, again, this episode is about inflation, some of the research that I was able to do on it, and I'm wondering what some of you, my viewers, think about the rates of inflation and the causes, like I just went through a second ago, even though, like I said, I do agree with some of the stuff that I've read on it, not all of it, but as far as the causes and what is inflation exactly. And it seems like different entities have different definitions even of that. Like, is inflation, the prices are increasing and we don't have enough money to pay for it, or is it not? Like, I mean, it seems like even that is contentious between even the sites that I just read to you. I just did a quick search and found a couple of them. So you could imagine if I just did that, what the different news networks and news outlets, between MSNBC, Newsmax, they're on different sides of the coin, you know, ideological spectrum. So they're looking at this stuff in different ways, and they're also looking at solutions to it in different ways. So it's always interesting to see some of those differentiating factors when it comes to that. But again, I'm wondering what you all think about all of this, and what are some of your ideas to, that might help it change, and if you do have ideas, are you the type that will go to your local representatives and let them know, speak your mind, call, they always say, call your local representative to voice your opinion about A, B, C, D, and E, and hopefully it'll affect the way they vote on it, or the types of policy that they bring forth. So are you the type that will do that? Are you the type that will discuss it amongst your friends? Are you the type that discusses it with your family? Are you the type that journals everything and just writes down your own thoughts? Or are you the type that decide to start a crazy podcast like the Keen-Intuition podcast, just to talk through some stuff? Obviously, you see where I am at this point. Again, hearkening back to the first episode, which is the previous episode, I do enjoy having discussions of this type. I'm normally not having a discussion with myself as I am now, like, me just sitting in the room talking. So, I have family and friends and all that kind of stuff that I can bounce this stuff off of. Even some coworkers at times when we're at a level where we can speak of certain things. So, yeah, I'm just wondering where you all stand on that as well. So, there's just so much, in my opinion, that goes into this stuff. Like, you can never reach the end of the discussion. I mean, obviously, we're working within time parameters for this podcast, and in news shows and in print. Like, newspapers are only so long, and magazines or wherever people are writing at nowadays. I guess blogs can be longer, but that's actually another thing too. I didn't get to mention in the first podcast, as far as blogs and posts that you see on different social media outlets and things of that nature. Like, people end up looking at headlines and take that as meaning that's the whole story. But again, depending on the source of the content that you're ingesting, they may have a certain slant on it. So the headline might say one thing, but then you go in the story and half of the story contradicts the headline, or the headline is worded as such that it seems like the story is contradictory to that. So again, a lot of times they're trying to drive a narrative in a certain direction, and what I'm about is getting to the actual facts and trying to avoid narratives. Or sometimes narratives are necessary in order to see why something was reported a certain way. But again, I want to get to the actual facts. So, but again, circling back around, inflation. It affects everybody from rich to poor, from higher up to grunt, to everybody gets affected by it, because you don't go to the store and they say we're going to charge you less because you make X amount of money. It's just, I don't know, maybe they'll get a hold of it. It just seems like it just seems like it's a big cycle. Not even a cycle. It's like a boulder that rolls down a hill, and once that boulder gets started, it's either going to reach points where it goes faster, or it's going to reach points where it kind of slows down a little bit. But I don't think I've ever seen that boulder just sit in one spot. Like, what if they could build a metaphorical trench in that mountain, in the side of that mountain, that will stop that boulder right there, and kind of prop it up so that it won't keep rolling. Who knows if that's actually possible, or what mechanisms would be needed in order to do that. So, but basically, this was the introduction to the episode, I wanted to go through a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and take a break right quick. And when we get back, we'll go into a little bit more discussion. So thank you again for joining, and we'll be right back. With the Keen Intuition. Thank you for staying with me. And I think we're going to get to the section of the show that I like to call What Are You Thinking? I'm still playing on the word keen intuition. So for this week, again, with the main topic being inflation, one of the things that I was thinking about was gas prices in general. And in the main pod, I may have mentioned that gas prices has fluctuated. I think it had risen a lot, and then it dropped a few cents, and then it's just been all over the place. So, and I mention it because I remember when I first moved to Georgia. I'm probably showing my age again, but I don't care at this point. But the first time I moved to Georgia was back at the end of 1997, and it was a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. And I'll never, ever, 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 ever forget coming off the freeway going to my uncle's house in Stone Mountain. And we came around 285 and got off on Covington Highway. They don't live there anymore, so I feel okay giving this information. But just for reference, for some of y'all that know Atlanta and DeKalb County, to know where in Stone Mountain this is located. Coming off the freeway onto Covington Highway, there's a gas station right off the freeway, Chevron gas station. And I'll never forget coming off the freeway when we first moved here, and gas was 69 cents a gallon. 69 cents a gallon. I mean, that was for the low kind, but we had the, whatever it was, 97 octane or whatever. So it was 69 cents a gallon. The reason I remember that so fondly and so crazily is because in California at that time when we left Lancaster, California, the gas station that I went to was the Arco on 10th Street West and right off of Lancaster Boulevard, again, for people to have reference that know where I'm talking about. At that time, gas was hovering around, I want to say $1.25 a gallon. Of course, it's higher in California because taxes and all that kind of stuff. But to go from $1.25 or $1.30 or whatever it was to seeing 69 cents a gallon, that was crazy. That blew my mind at that time. That blew my mind. And even now, I know that there's a big difference between the prices because I looked it up, and that same gas station that we went to, that Chevron on Covington Highway, today's price was $2.82 a gallon. And I know people in the West Coast are like, $2.82 a gallon? What are you complaining about? And you're right, it's cheaper out here. But I'm saying, going from 69 cents at that time, and now it's hovering around $3 a gallon. Granted, 1997 was a long time ago, but I'm saying that's just an example of how the prices have changed. And now I looked up that Arco that I used to go to, and the price there today is $4.70 a gallon. So it went from $1.25 to $4.70. So I know there's a question about supply and demand and production and ensuring the gas stations because they have shrinkage and all that kind of stuff, and they have to balance that with making money off of their convenience items, like when you go in the store and buy some M&Ms and it's 2 times the amount that it costs in a the grocery store or whatever. I know all that factors in somehow, but it's just crazy to me. Number one, the difference in gas price between this area in Georgia and that area in California, and the difference in the amount between then 1997 and now 2025. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. That in addition to, like I said, groceries and other items, it just, again, blows my mind. I don't even know what else to say about it. It blows my mind. So, it's did they put gold in the gas? Is it laced with diamonds? Are the pumps made of platinum, or or is it literally the same type of gas, if not a lower grade of the same type of gas? What is the additional value that we're getting for that gas? And I know, again, there's a boulder, like I said, that metaphor, going down the hill. Can we stop the boulder and all that kind of stuff? But you would think that over time, you would get additional value out of whatever it is you're consuming. And in this case, gas. Your car is consuming gas. You're not consuming it, obviously. But um, you would think that the value level of value would increase along with the price. Like they would come up with some kind of technology to make it last longer, or something like that. And I'm not talking about electric cars. I'm just talking about straight gas. And whether it be in your car, your lawnmower, the tool, the blower that you blow the leaves off the porch with, and all that kind of stuff. So um, I don't know. That's crazy to me. And it's not just gas. Obviously, it's the price of bread, the price of grain that you make the bread with, the price of everything is in that bucket. But the gas example is crazy because people who have vehicles, they need gas. It's not something that you can get away from, unless even if you have, hybrid cars. Maybe electric vehicles are different, but if you have a hybrid car, if you have uh, a car that runs on gas, you can't get away from that. You have to be able to put gas in your car to get to work. Like the people at the grocery store, they need gas in order to put in the trucks that deliver the stuff to the store. Um, it's not the same gas, but airlines, they need gas in order to fly the planes. Just like everything is all intertwined with it. So you can't not buy it. Now you can buy gas and be less, or not less, but more efficient with the way that you use it. Meaning, maybe we won't go for that drive in the country or whatever. But I can tell you one thing: if gas ever dropped back down to 69 cents a gallon, I'm crisscrossing the country. I'm driving everywhere. I'm driving to Alaska. I don't even know if you could do that. I'm driving there. Like, seriously, I'm going everywhere. What is that song? I've been everywhere, man. Like, that's going to be me in the car. Or that episode of, what was it, King of Queens, when Spence made that mixtape for Doug. Some of y'all who watched that know. And they were all singing, "You don't know," like that song. Like, that's gonna be me in the car if it go back down to 69 cents. You could record that. You could turn this into a meme, even though nobody knows who I am. But y'all can mark this day, everything. Like, I'm gonna be all over the place. But will we ever get back to that place? Probably not. But here's the wishing for it. If I had a drink, I'd be like toasting to gas prices going back down and egg prices and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that was just a little something that I was thinking, just to stay with the theme of this segment. So, anyways, I'll go ahead and throw it back. With the keen intuition. With the keen intuition. Okay, welcome, welcome back to the Keen Intuition podcast, and I appreciate you for sticking around with me. So again, the topic today is inflation. So I know I went through a bunch of statistics and all that kind of stuff, and a bunch of research that I did. So a couple more things I wanted to talk about. Uh, the first of which is, what is the reason for the current rate of inflation, or the current state of inflation? I was trying to do some research on that as well. I did come across a couple places, like the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says COVID-based complications caused a relatively low incline starting in 2021. So they're basically saying that the rate of inflation was a little bit less, but there was still an incline at that time. But they say it was based on the supply chain issues, and then the labor market issues and shortage in workers, because everybody was staying home and people couldn't do nothing at that time. And then all them boats was out there in the ocean and couldn't get through, like the Panama Canal or wherever they were at. So that's what the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says. NerdWallet, again, I'm trying to find sources from everywhere, says inflation rose in the 12 months ending in August 2025, bringing the current inflation rate to 2.9%. So I did mention some of the numbers a little bit earlier, but NerdWallet says it was at 2.9% as of August of 2025. Right now it's October, so that rate is a little bit different now. I think the last number I saw was like around closer to 3.7. So, yeah, that's that's crazy to me, man. Like, people's wages. Like, I remember when, not my current job, but um, a few jobs ago, they restructured the incentive program and the merit increase program, or the not program, but the way that they calculate all that stuff. And it went from a situation where you could get between 3 and 5% if you did really well that year, to now most people don't get more than 2% at the most, and that's if you did really good. Most people got like 1%, maybe 1.5% if you were lucky, as an increase in salary. If if the rate of inflation, the target is 2%, you're already behind. You're never going to catch up with inflation based on that, unless you have a higher, if you start out with a higher paying job to begin with. And, you know, not everybody can do that. Sometimes you have to haggle and, beg, and not beg, but, claw and scratch, and negotiate extra and all that kind of stuff between actual wages and then benefits that come along with that. So you're already starting at a disadvantage. And that's even worse when you make lower amounts of money, or if you've been laid off, or whatever the other situations are that arise. So um, the way those numbers go together is, like I said, it's crazy to me. It's wild. So, anyways, NerdWallet goes on to say, generally speaking, a number of factors cause inflation. The recent surge of inflation has been driven, at least in part, by supply chain issues, the housing crisis, pent up consumer demand, and economic stimulus from the pandemic. So it's still talking about the pandemic. And again, those numbers were based on August of 2025, so they're kind of living in the past a little bit. But I do agree with the part about the supply chain. As I said before, I didn't think about the housing crisis part until I pulled this quote. And then the pent up consumer demand is probably a big thing as well, because obviously as the demand goes up relative to the supply, then they're going to be able to raise prices based on that, because the more people want it, the more it's going to cost in a lot of instances. So, but again, they keep harkening back to the pandemic. So that got me thinking about consumer pain, because like I said, if our wages are not rising along with the inflation rates, that means we're going to end up being priced out of just even the simplest things, like cotton swabs or whatever, things you take for granted, that you need, like soap or whatever else it is. So bankrate.com, pertaining to consumer pain, it says consumers pay more close attention to cumulative inflation, and prices are 24.3% more expensive today than they were before the COVID pandemic, and they're calling it a recession, which began in 2020. So Bankrate says prices are actually over 24% higher overall than they were before the pandemic. And I mean, I don't know if I can really disagree with that, because if you look at grocery prices in a store, like, I've seen reports, I'm not quoting these reports verbatim, but I've seen reports where people are like, I used to go to the store and spend $100 in a trip for groceries, depending on what they were getting. Now I'm spending $175 for the same stuff. And I've experienced that too. Like, I went to Sam's Club not too long ago to get ground beef, and that little package of ground beef that normally would have cost probably, I don't know, $21 or so, it cost almost $50 for that same section of beef. It wasn't bigger, it wasn't, the 70/80, all that stuff, or not 70/80, 70/30, or 80/20. Like, they hadn't changed those or anything. It was I actually usually either try to buy 80/20 or 90/10 when I get ground beef. So it was the same type that I normally get, and I ended up paying actually almost a time and a half for it. I might be a little off on the 20 something dollar amount, but the last time I went, it was definitely closer to 50, and that's where you're supposed to get the cheaper. It's supposed to be the better value. So that's my personal experience on that. So, and that was just one thing I happened to look at, not to mention all the other stuff that we need to have, we need in order to have meals and stuff like that. So that led me to think about a little something else. And I don't know, I can't say that Sam's is doing this, but some of these places are kind of like gouging us a little bit. And I feel like that might be the case for like the gas stations and stuff. And to an extent, like maybe they didn't add an additional, 50 cents a gallon or something like that, but they probably kicked it up a little bit. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just speaking based on the prices I've been paying for stuff. So what I found on price gouging versus inflation is inflation can occur when economic and or environmental factors conspire to cause increases in the cost to manufacture goods or provide services, which is basically what the other research was saying. Price gouging can occur when businesses or industries increase prices irrespective of overall environmental factors, but sometimes in conjunction with said factors. Production costs may have risen 8%, but prices were increased 12%, which is basically what I was just talking about. And obviously, that's not fair, but that's what business is in the capitalist society. Like the people that own the companies and the people on the boards and the people who are eligible for bonuses, they're supposed to maximize that, and more is the name of the game. They want to be the first millionaire. Then the first millionaire wanted to be the first billionaire. Now you got trillionaires, and now you want to get to whatever comes after trillion, kabillion. I don't know what the number is after trillion, but that's the name of the game for a lot of these people. So as a result, they end up passing that on to us, the consumer. And is it fair? Like I said, probably not. But you have to be able to be savvy when you're buying stuff. When you're, people used to do, couponers and stuff like that, which I still do coupon a little bit, even though you don't really see as many of them now. But they would have the books full of coupons, and then you would go into their basement, and it would look like, the grocery store down there, because they would have all kind of rice-a-roni and all kind of stuff down there. And obviously it was non-perishable stuff for the most part in canned goods, but like that stuff comes in handy. Like if one month you can't afford to buy steak or whatever, which I don't eat a lot of steak, but if you can't afford to buy steak, go down there and get some beans, put them on with some rice, and you got a meal. And everybody could be satisfied. Maybe not taste buds, but their stomach can be satisfied. So some of that stuff came in handy. And then not just with stuff like that, but paper goods like toilet paper and stuff like that. And that was a big thing during the pandemic. People made a run on toilet paper, and like, how we gonna run out of toilet paper? But you got to realize all them people were going to work. For the people that worked in the office, I'm a telecommuter, but for people who worked in the office, they were all going to work, using the bathroom at work all day, peeing and stuff. I ain't gonna say get nasty or nothing, but using the toilet paper at work. Now they got to use it at home. So you're not used to having to get an extra, 8 rolls per week or whatever it is. Now everybody at all the stores buying the shelves out of toilet paper and other toiletries. So it was like a cause and effect for that. Plus, it was like probably some hysteria involved with it too, because people were like, "Oh, you got to get all the toilet paper because we're not going to be able to leave the house for a year," or whatever people were saying back then. That caused people to do a run on the store and start buying up everything. So that was so people are crazy, and I'm involved with that too. So I can't even talk. But those were some of the factors that led to that. So, but going back to one of the things I was talking about earlier to segue, was when the president wanted the Fed to drop the interest rate, and then there was that controversy with the one person didn't want to drop it, and then they ended up finally dropping it. And based on trading economics, they said the Fed cut interest rates by basis points, or the measure is called basis points, 25 BPS, which is 25 basis points, in September of 2025, which brought the range between 4 and 4.25%. Now, as I said before, a decrease in interest rates is good, obviously, if you want to buy a house or a car or whatever else those rates pertain to. Credit cards, I don't know if it trickles down to there. But if you want to go and purchase any of those things, lower interest rates is definitely a good thing. However, having a lower interest rate on a higher price, you know, you don't end up feeling that really because you're still paying more money and a lot of people feel that way. I mean, whether it's sound or not, whether the numbers are sound or not, people feel that way. So even though you're going to drop interest rates, maybe some people that were on the fringes of trying to decide on making a purchase or whatever, maybe they'll go and make a purchase. But people that are living paycheck to paycheck or in that range, they still not gonna buy none of that stuff. In fact, they probably gonna use that if it trickles down to credit cards as a way, as a opportunity to try to pay down their current debt as opposed to acquiring more debt. You know, at least that's how I'd be thinking about it. And so again, I don't know how much, like I don't know how that really stimulates things when the economy is in a state like it is now. Like if we weren't in a state of inflation, maybe there would be a different type of effect. But when we're in a state of inflation and the economy is in the state that it is now, I don't know how much. I mean, like I said, it probably does help. I don't know how much it does help. And they went on to say the idea is usually to increase consumer confidence and spending, even when the price of goods do not decrease, along with the interest rates. I forgot that was a quote, but that's exactly what I was just saying. The idea is that it's going to increase consumer confidence, but for me personally, it probably wouldn't increase my confidence. So then the last thing that I wanted to talk about when it pertains to this was tariffs and the thoughts of a recession. Now, I did look up recession. I'm sorry, I'm reading over here. Fidelity.com says recessions. Recession is a prolonged period of negative economic growth in the country. It's one of four phases in the endless economic circle of life. And then it says 2/4 of a decline in GDP or a lack of economic activity. So I don't think I don't think there's been a decline in the GDP. Again, some of these companies are experiencing record profits. So overall, the GDP is probably okay. So some experts are saying we're not in a recession, even though it feels like it, because you can't really, because the numbers are off to people, to the layman. So, like, is a recession going to happen? In my opinion, I actually thought we were already in one until I started reading up on what the actual definition is. But I do think that when I hear of things like, I think I mentioned earlier, the cars being on the car lots for U.S. Producers, when they start being unable to actually sell anything, even with the interest rates being cut, that's when the GDP starts to suffer because, if you can't sell anything, you're not making money on it. And then that in conjunction with people probably scaling back on some, I don't want to say frivolous, but, maybe you're going to buy the 12 ounce instead of the 16 ounce or, whatever the case is, even though we've already been shrinkflated, which I didn't get to in any of this, but shrinkflation, even though we're already experiencing that, which means that you're paying more or either more or the same, but then they're lessening the portions that they give you. So if you're used to getting laundry detergent that's 110 loads or whatever, but now the bottle only has 90 loads, but you're still paying the 110 load price, and the package is just smaller. That's shrinkflation, is what they were calling that. So again, we're already actually paying for less. So what I was saying before actually goes out the window. So you can't do, I'm only buying 12 ounces when I used to buy 16, because you're probably already buying 13 and a half, but paying the 16 price. So, but again, people will probably even cut back further from that as well. And you kind of don't have a choice to, because you got to make the same amount of money stretch. You have the same amount of money. and you got to figure out what you can and can't buy for that amount of money. Because as I said before, salaries aren't really rising along with all of these other factors. So, um, yeah, that's those. Those are something. That's a lot of stuff within probably what will end up being a 30-minute episode. At the end of the day, um, that's a lot that you have to think about, and deal with and navigate through. So again, I tried to look through all these different data elements and research points of research, and to bring it all to you to kind of put it all together in my mind. Now I'm wondering what y'all think about all this. I mean, I know everybody's hurting right now, so if people are in the comments, they're probably gonna be like, "Man, I paid blah 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 for such and such." Even okay, another thing that happened, and I'm gonna end after this, is there's a place that I really like going to get wings. We like every Friday at the end of the week, we try to do some kind of order out type thing with my family, and there's a one place in particular that I like to go to get wings, and I started going there because they were less expensive, and I don't have to. They don't do DoorDash and stuff like that, so I started going there. I have to actually go pick it up, but it's right around the corner, so it's not really. It ain't like I'm driving across town or something like that. I was like all comfortable going there. I was like, yeah, this is the price we locked in. I know I'm gonna spend X amount every week. How come their prices went up? How come their prices went up? I can't even get some wings at the end of the week and feel good about it. Like the prices went up. And I realize it's because the supplies they use, the chicken and all that kind of stuff. My voice is cracking. The chicken and all that kind of stuff costs more. But I mean, because that's what it is. I mean, literally this episode is about inflation. So we're talking about inflation. So I don't believe that they're price gouging because everything went up. So the amount that it went up for them still puts it at a rate that's better than me door dashing or Uber Eats and somewhere and stuff like that. But it's just like the first time I went there and the price had risen, I wasn't prepared for that because I was budgeting. You got to budget for stuff, so I was budgeting for a certain thing. I know y'all gonna be like, these are first world problems. Keen intuition. What you talking about? It's people in wherever that can't even buy rice or whatever. Like I agree, and that's what I'm saying. Like yeah, I'm probably in a place of slight privilege because I can eat out from time to time, but like I said, everybody's feeling this inflation. Everybody's feeling this. So, anyways, cut a long story short, they ended up charging more too. It didn't stop me from buying wings because I love wings, but at least not now. So we'll see if it rises more, and then because again, my wages have not risen. I mean, I get I'm eligible for a merit increase like in many jobs, but again, it's not rising with all them numbers I just told y'all. It definitely ain't rising with those. So miss me with that, homie. No, I'm just playing. Anyways, I guess I'm crazy, y'all. I guess I'm gonna close it out on that with another question. What do y'all think about all the stuff that I presented? The reasons behind inflation. What is inflation? Inflation versus price gouging. The thought of a recession. Have y'all experienced a big change in prices other than gas? Obviously, everybody's experienced that. And what do you think about the stats that I was able to find? So those are some questions I'll end with. Again, thank you for joining. I can't believe gas was 69 cents a gallon. I don't think I'll ever not be stuck on that. I don't even know what else to say about that. 69 cents a gallon. I'm driving all the way. Can you drive to Russia from here? Like, if it freezes over between the Aleutian Islands going to Alaska or whatever, like, I don't want to go to Russia, but I'm just saying, like, it's ridiculous to me. Anyways, yeah, I don't know what else to say after that. I'm gonna close it. So in closing, I'd like to say thanks again for joining the Keen Intuition Show. Thanks for your support now and for any that you give in the future. And one thing I always say is, if you didn't hear it directly from me, then there's a good chance that I probably didn't actually say it. On that note, see you next time.